Okay, so that means we are right at 1 o'clock. It's time to get going. Welcome. My name is Katie Andrews. I'm a registered dietitian and wellness expert, and I'm here today in coordination with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and the Tufts Health Plan for our presentation, Owning Your Nutrition from Fork to Fit. So this is one of my kind of mainstay Nutrition 101 presentations. I know we only have 30 minutes, so I am just going to jump right in because there's so much for us to cover, and I want to make sure that you guys get as much out of this as possible. Feel free to take notes. I don't mind even if you take pictures of some of my slides. There's a lot of information here. I want this to be as useful and helpful for you guys as possible. So a little bit about me. I'm actually based in Connecticut in Westport, just an hour outside of the city. I actually did my master's at Tufts, so love a Tufts connection. I've been a dietitian for over 10 years, and I really focus specifically in the corporate wellness space. I also have a private practice that's been here for about 3 years, around for 5 years. So I do some one-on-one counseling, but a lot of my time is really spent in this type of environment, doing corporate wellness presentations on a variety of topics. Our presentation for today is really around first the concept of wellness, but then really talking about nutrition. So many topics that fall under the wellness umbrella, but we wanted to share really specifically about nutrition today. How do we eat the way, why do we eat the way we eat? How should we be eating? Why is there so much confusion around this? When I think about my presence with social media or with my clients, I feel like I'm constantly just trying to undo misinformation. Trying to go out there and be like, no. You don't need to worry about all of these things, because some of the basics of nutrition really get lost in that shuffle. So that presentation is really going to focus on that today. I would love if we could cover everything that there is to know about nutrition in 30 minutes. Obviously, we can't do that, but I wanted to leave you with a strong, solid understanding of the basics. And again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them there. So before we kind of delve into the eating, I like to kind of give my perspective on wellness, from a very, very bird's eye view. That is that wellness is really more than just science. Yes, I'm a scientist by trade, and I believe in research-driven science when I give people advice. But it's more than science, right? If food were just about science, it wouldn't be so complicated to figure out how and what and why to eat when we should eat. But food is really about more of our upbringing, our culture, our lifestyle, right? Your favorite food probably is rooted in some type of memory that you have from childhood. And while it's very easy to come out and just say, we should all eat this much protein and these carbs and this fat, food is more complex than that, right? I have 3 kids. I'm teaching them to have relationships with food that are more complex than that as well. So I think that this is a great bird's eye view to start with, that yes, everything we're learning today is driven by science, resides in science, and I really do want it to be something applicable that you can learn. But always remember that food, it comes with love as well. Food is not just science. And when we simplify, whether it be diets or books about certain ways to eat or cutting out certain nutrients, when we overly simplify like that, we're missing out on the love and the culture and the life that comes with food as well. So that's how I like to practice. It's been working well for me. I'm hoping to share it with you today. But first, I do like to start with some numbers. So why is it that I spend my career, so much of my time, really talking about nutrition? This is a food survey that's done by the Food and Information Council, Independent Food and Information Council, every year. And this one was from a couple years ago, but I thought this was a really interesting way to start this conversation today. That even though there's so much nutrition information out there, right? Whether it be entire sections of bookstores on diet books, specialists on TV, people on social media, influencers, tons of information, right? We seem to be confused. This survey says that more than half of Americans consider themselves to be in excellent or very good health. And while I'd love to say that was the case, the statistics of health markers in our country are actually not really reflective of that. Right. And yet we all seem to believe that we are very healthy. Not only that we are very healthy, but that we're healthier than the guy next to us. Right. So not only am I very healthy, but nearly 3 in 4 judge their own diet to be healthier than that of the average American. So it's like, hey, I'm really good at this. And I'm also better than everybody else in this room. Right. I can tell you this is not the case either. Right. We see statistics that are related to whether it's levels of diabetes, blood pressure, these kind of lifestyle conditions that are influenced by diet and how we live our lives. And we see that we're not, 3 in 4 people are not healthier than the average American. And yet we seem to have this relationship with healthfulness that's a little bit different. Now we get to this third slide, and it's like, well, we all think we're so healthy. We all think we're doing such a great job, and yet more Americans are following a diet in 2020 than in 2019. That was the last time that this study was done. I will tell you, having gone through COVID and the kind of statistics I see in my own practice, that these numbers are just higher. They grow every single year, right? The diet industry, never before has there been such a successful, unsuccessful industry, right? The industry, trillions of dollars that we spend on diet books, diet apps, diet programs, and yet diets are 99.99% unsuccessful, meaning that weight loss over a sustained period of time without damage to the person, right? Whether that be in disordered eating behavior or a broken mental relationship with food, we don't see those positive statistics coming out of the diet industry, and yet it is a massively successful industry, right? Imagine if we compared this to smoking cessation, right? And we said, yeah, everyone quit smoking for 30 days, and they come back next year and do it again, right? We would really not consider that to be a success, and yet financially successful because we continue to invest. And we do that because we care about our health, right? We think we're really healthy. We're trying. We care. Diets seem to be what you're meant to do if you're concerned about nutrition, and yet they don't seem to work. And why is that happens? Well, whether it's headlines around nutrition that are misleading, whether it's studies that seem to show the opposite effects of what we're hoping for, whether it's influencers like this, her name is Food Babe. I don't want you to go follow her on social media, but if you went to check out her content, you'd find she really focuses on fear mongering around food. Everything's toxic. Everything you're feeding your kids, everything in the grocery aisle, every food we're producing in this country is awful for you, right? And you need to run to run for the hills screaming. Alternately, we let people that are doctors, but not doctors related to nutrition, give us food advice when they have no idea what they're talking about, right? Dr. Phil is someone who's yo-yo dieted his entire life and career, so not a great person to get diet advice from. Dr. Oz has been sued and settled out of court multiple times for actually selling supplements that have detrimental health effects. So people we shouldn't be listening to. Now, we then find that there are headlines that seem promising, right? But they don't have sustainable long-term results. Electronic diaries helping people lose weight, but the results don't last after 2 years. And then we start to get into the fad diet space. So if you had told me when I was a grad student measuring out, grams of mayonnaise for pediatric keto trays, that this would become the next fad diet, I would have told you were nuts. But it did. And people follow these diets because I really believe it's tempting to say, just give me something to do, even if it's super restrictive, even if there's tons of rules, I will follow it to a T just to try to get the results that I've been looking for. We take advice from people that makes no sense, right? This is from the medical medium, the health benefits of celery juice. Kills Epstein-Barr and the shingles virus. This is literally not possible in medical science for that to be a true statement, and yet we buy into it. And then we have even weight loss programs, nutrition programs that are supported by people within my industry that come out with graphics like this, right? That I cannot ever get behind, right? Why are blueberries a green light food? And yet olive oil, which we know is something that we need, healthy fats, but also really beneficial for our heart health, goes into the red category. It makes absolutely no sense. And finally, this is my favorite graphic, because if you can understand this, you're smarter than I am at this stuff. Alternate day intermittent fasting. There was a study that just came out that said intermittent fasting has no benefits when it comes to weight loss, sustained weight loss, if that's a goal of yours, compared to following a healthful, balanced diet, right? So starving yourself for half the day does not have sustained weight loss effects. And in fact, a lot of my focus really isn't on weight loss. It's on just healthful eating. It promotes broken and disordered relationships between the human and food. So all of this is what we're constantly barraged with. And it's no wonder we feel confused. I'm a big, digester of media. My bachelor's degree is in communications and media and public speaking. Intermittent fasting makes no sense. Isn't that what we do when we're sleeping anyway? Yes, thank you. Fantastic comment. Intermittent fasting does not make any sense. I'm happy to go into more detail as to why, but exactly, we are fasting when we sleep. It's all the fasting that we need. So these headlines, it's no wonder we're confused, right? I love to digest old nutrition headlines and go, wow, what has happened? Well, in 30 years, first we're saying, here's the bad news, no more eggs and bacon. Then we're telling people to eat butter. So why are we so confused, and who should we be listening to other than people like me? Well, I like to do a little bit of like a history review here on the government recommendations around nutrition. Now, these are really, really sunk deep into the lobbies that we have here in the US. So the dairy lobby, the meat lobby, have a lot of influence on what we tell people to eat, which is a problem. We'll see why in a second. But actually, initial government recommendations around food dated back to World War II, when this USDA nutrition chart was created because people were on food rations. And we needed to explain to people, because we didn't want them getting scurvy or becoming protein deficient. We need to explain to people that you can get protein from non-animal sources, right? Nuts, beans, these are already being featured in the 1940s as protein sources. We focused on canned and frozen foods. I still get asked, are you sure are frozen strawberries okay to have in the winter? Yes, 100%. Canned food's a little bit different just in terms of rinsing to remove excess sugar and sodium, but frozen food is very popular and very healthy. They're cheaper and they're no less healthful than fresh broccoli or fresh strawberries. So even back in the 1940s, we knew that people needed some guidance on what to eat and some information, right, that was lacking outside of just, your meat, potatoes, and dairy. Now, this has shifted over time. This is the food pyramid that I grew up with. Why we made it a pyramid, I'll never know. But this was the early 90s. This was on every school, cafeteria wall and in every doctor's office. It's okay. It's certainly better. A lot changed between here and here, but we're still using a pyramid versus a plate. We're trying to explain things like portions and ratios to people, but I don't know about you. When I look at this, even as a health professional, I'm not like, wow, that's super clear. Let me go make lunch. I know exactly what to do now. What does use sparingly mean when we have fats, oils, and sweets? Why are fats and sweets being put together in one group, right? Milk, yogurt, and cheese, not really a necessary food group. Yes, some health benefits beyond, for early childhood development, but for adults, I wouldn't put it as a required food group necessarily. I like that fruits and vegetables have equal weight there, close enough to equal weight, 3 to 5 and 2 to 4 servings. Fruits always demonized compared to vegetables, not sure why. And we end up with, bread, cereal, rice, and pasta as our largest food group, 6 to 11 servings. Not a lot of information here though, right? And the pyramid still very confusing in my perspective. So what did we move on to? This is what is called My Plate. This is our current iteration of government recommendations around food. This was really born out of the Obama era. Michelle Obama's efforts as First Lady were really based around childhood nutrition. She had the White House garden. So this was believed, I can't tell you how many billions of dollars go into creating a graphic like this. This was believed to be a very modern and very intellectualized way to explain healthy nutrition to people. Now, I love that we're back at a plate, right? I love that this shows what I tell people: 50% of your plate, fruits and vegetables, 50% from the ground. If you start there, you're off to a great start. However, there's no mention of fats. We have dairy as if everyone should be drinking a glass of milk at their dinner. Completely unnecessary. And we don't really define better choices within food groups. So the simplicity of this is beautiful, but sometimes overly simplistic in my perspective. Now, the Harvard School of Public Health created their own healthy eating plate in response to the My Plate image. And this was for a long time what I used in my practice. If you said to me, Katie, we're going to give you 30 seconds, you need to show them a graphic so that they know how to eat healthy, this is what I use. Water is a drink. It includes healthy fats. I still don't understand why the vegetable portion is so much bigger than the fruit. But at least we distinguish between whole grains and we define what healthy proteins are versus all proteins, right? But I gotta say, I can do you one better. Now, I'd love to tell you I designed this. If I did design an infographic for food, this would be it. But this actually comes from our friends up north, the Canadian government. This is their My Plate image. So you're looking at what we have, which is this, right? A lot to be asked for. And then you go to this. This to me is where we connect food and life, food and love, food and culture, right? Because now we're actually looking at food. Super helpful. A child can understand this. A PhD professor can understand this. Plenty of fruits and vegetables, half your plate, right? Look at the variety in that color. You've got half a plate left. You want it to be a quarter is your protein, a quarter are your whole grains. Make water your drink of choice. Simple and effective. This is what I use in my practice as the best visual iteration for what it means to eat healthy. Now, Some people are less visual and more numbers people. So let's take both perspectives here, okay? Because people say, okay, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, let's simplify. Let's not get into crazy diet rules. But how much protein do I need? I'm still confused. I don't know. What I'll tell you is scientists, I wouldn't say they're confused, but the reason why I don't like to give these recommendations and ranges is because the ranges are wide. The amount of protein that you need is really based on you as an individual, right? You'll see here 10 to 35% of your calories. That's a pretty wide range, right? It depends how physically active are you, what's your age, what's your gender, do you have any underlying medical conditions? But what I want you to see here is that you've got about 50% of your diet coming from carbohydrates. I know, scary. We're all scared of bread, and we all gave it up for January's Whole30. So this might seem confusing. And then you've got, after 50%, kind of 25% and 25% to your protein and fat. That is a very oversimplified way to look at this, but if you are a numbers person, you can look over here on the right, and I simplified it to a 2,000 calorie diet because that's what we use on food labels. And it would say around 200 to 700 calories from protein, 400 to 700 calories from fat. Fat's twice as calorie dense as protein and carbohydrate. Excuse me. Where are you going, buddy? And then your carbohydrates more like 900 to 1,200, 1,300 calories. Again, 4 calories per gram like protein. So if you're a numbers person, this is a very simple understanding of the breakdown of what our diet looks like. But it's a little overly simple because eating and being full and satisfied isn't just about saying, okay, I got this much protein, I got this much carb, I got this much fat, great, okay, I ate. And then you're like, why am I getting hungry 20, 30 minutes later every day after I have lunch? It's because the relationship between these three factors, protein, fat, and fiber is the fullness aspect of carbohydrates, together are what provide what's called satiety. Now, satiety is when you eat a meal, you finish it and you go, okay, I feel good. Checked in with myself. My hunger is managed. I'm not craving anything. I got it all in this meal. I got protein, I got fat, I got fiber, right? I had lunch just before this presentation. I had some leftover chicken thighs. I had some potatoes that were roasted in butter. So I've got protein, I've got fat, the potatoes provide the fiber, and then I had a salad on the side. So this is a great way of taking these two concepts that I want you to walk away with today. 50% fruits and vegetables, 25% is protein, 25% is your grains. And then it's the relationship of protein, fat, and fiber together. When you check that box and you do it, having all three is what really makes you feel, okay, I've met my nutrient needs, but I'm also satisfied and I'm not walking away and feeling hungry all the time. So let's get into the food a little bit more, because this is great conceptually, but I find it's really more helpful to know, okay, I get it. I need protein, fat, and fiber. I want 50% fruits and vegetables. How do I feel satisfied? Well, it's understanding the macronutrients and the roles that they play. So I like to use this teaching metric called the angel devil conundrum. And by teaching metric, I mean something I've completely invented as a way to learn this in a fun and simple manner. So we all need protein, fat, and carbohydrates. I know diets will tell you you can cut out carbohydrates completely, or you can go on very low fat diets and eat, Kraft singles, and I can't believe it's not butter spray. What I will tell you is that is not sustainable in the long term. Your body needs all three of these components to feel satisfied by your food, so that you're not finding yourself doing all that late night snacking that might be kind of, working against you. So let's start with the carbohydrates, because I think these are really easy to understand, but they get demonized the most. So carbs are your body's preferred source of energy. When I say preferred, I mean your body really was not built to break down fats through the process of ketosis into glucose molecules that then become ATP for energy. Your body was not made to do that. It can, because it's a survival mechanism in place, but it would really prefer you just get your energy from carbohydrates. So carbohydrates break down into energy components so effectively that we actually have enzymes in our saliva that help with carbohydrate metabolism and digestion. So while you're chewing, that saliva is breaking down that piece of bread and sending that energy into your bloodstream. Now, the reason why carbs get a bad reputation is because we like to refine and simplify them. So when you have refined carbohydrates, no fiber present, they get broken down really quickly. This is the difference between drinking a glass of juice or eating an apple or eating a slice of white bread or a piece of whole grain bread, right? Without the presence of any fiber, your body gets that sugar high really quick because it wants that energy. But then your pancreas goes, wait a second, there's too much sugar in the bloodstream. We've got to release some insulin so that this sugar can go into storage in the cells. And then you get this blood sugar spike and crash. When there's fiber present, either because you're eating a whole grain and the fiber hasn't been removed, or you're eating a whole fruit or vegetable with all the seeds and skin that provides the fiber, or you're eating beans or nuts, these are all fiber sources, you get this nice plateaued blood sugar response. So instead of spike and crash caused by the insulin, your body can release a little bit of sugar at a time into your bloodstream. Your body's like, oh, I can handle that. We don't need to send all this insulin out, which causes the crash. We can just let her run on this energy that we're providing. It's like using your energy in real time. So places that we find the refined carbohydrates tend to be higher in added sugars. This is commonly drinking your calories. Not to say you can't have those things once in a while, but they do lead to more of these blood sugar spikes and crash. Whereas the presence of fiber in your carbs will stabilize your blood glucose response. We also still get naturally occurring sugars, which we need for the energy. That would be like our fructose and fruit, or lactose and dairy. And then carbs also provide essential B vitamins. Have you ever heard of folate, niacin? These are all the B vitamins that we find, particularly in prenatal vitamins, but we get them naturally in our carbohydrate-rich foods. So if you're not eating carbs, you want to be careful that you're still going to make sure you get those essential B vitamins. Essential meaning your body can't produce them. You really need to eat them through food. So to take a better kind of perspective on our carbs, right? Include them 100%, but the ones you want to eat slightly less of, those white and enriched grains, juices or sodas, dairy with added sugars, that's like a flavored yogurt versus a yogurt you just add fruit to. And then hidden sugars. We're going to look at hidden sugars in a second. In things like granola bars or snacks. You want to eat more of your fiber-rich whole grains. So whole wheat couscous, brown rice, whole wheat pasta. Not all of your grains need to be whole grains. You know, the rule of thumb is if you can make half your grains whole, that's great. I recommend around 3 to 5 grams of fiber per serving. And then whole fruits and vegetables, things with skins and seeds. So you're going to get about a cup of raspberries. That's around 8 grams of fiber. It's almost a third of your needs for the day. Whereas fruits and vegetables where you don't eat the skin and seeds, let's say a banana, still very healthy for you, but lower in fiber. And then nuts and seeds and beans as well. So, okay, so those are my thoughts on carbs. One last note just on the added sugars, because we didn't used to delineate between added sugar and naturally occurring sugar, and now we do, which is incredibly helpful. So we want to try to limit added sugars in our diet just because they really do lead to that blood sugar spike crash response. They also are, raise our rates of prediabetes or diabetes. So the recommendations, you don't have to hold to this hard and fast, but the general recommendations: 6 teaspoons or 100 calories or less for women, 9 teaspoons, 150 calories or less for men. Recommendation is the same for children as it is for women. And now you can see on your food labels that those added sugars are identified. So this is a great way to look at some of the snacks you might have at home or in the office. I recommend that you really don't want more than 10 grams of added sugar in a food, and think about what that food's providing, right? If it's just a quick little snack, getting 20% of your added sugar for the day is quite a lot. It's something you would otherwise think is healthy. So I would say 20% or low per serving for added sugar, but be thoughtful about where you use it. I'd rather use my added sugar on a dessert or even, let's say, a flavored coffee in winter than a granola bar that I think is pretty healthy, having 10 grams of added sugar where it's very easy to get a granola bar that has much less. Okay, so let's talk about fat. So fat is the key to feeling full. Fat actually helps produce the hormones that get released by your gut to tell your brain, I'm satisfied. You can stop sending the food down. We're good down here. Okay. So fat is key. This is why if you grew up in the era of Snackwells and Olestra and, Kraft singles that I did, and it was drilled into your head, if you don't eat fat, you won't get fat. You want to try to undo some of that lecture. We need fat 100% for key processes within our body, creating hormones, which are our body's communication directors. So if we don't have enough fat and we can't produce those hormones, then we may be breaking up the communication pathways between our head and our gut. So fat, broken into two different types. We've got our saturated and trans fats. These are the fats that are less good for you. Solid at room temperature, raise your LDL, that's your bad cholesterol levels. Then we've got our good fats, our mono and polyunsaturated fats. These can help improve blood cholesterol levels, reduce risk of heart attack and stroke, and then omega-3/6 fatty acids. These are also known as EPA and DHA. They help to slow the growth of plaque within our bloodstream. Now, I said there was going to be one type of fat that we really always want to skip, and that's our trans fat. So this isn't a naturally occurring fat. We only find this in chemically engineered foods. So things like snack cakes and chips and crackers. Check your labels. If they're trans fats, you want to put that back on the shelf, choose something else. So we're going to eat less of the fattier cuts of meat. Doesn't mean you can't eat red meat. You can eat red meat every week if you want. Just choose a less marbled cut, right? A top round or a sirloin. Lower the amount of fat in your ground beef. So I do a 93.7 ground beef, and I find so little, I like to leave the fat in for flavor instead of draining it, but it produces so little fat because it's a 93.7 grass-fed beef that it's super flavorful and a lot less saturated fat. Full fat dairy, I'm a big proponent of use a small amount of the real thing than putting fat-free creamer in, right? I'd rather you really enjoy the taste of whole milk in your coffee than use something that's artificial. But when that that full fat dairy is so flavorful, you don't need as much. And then fried foods, baked goods, these are all the things we want to have a little bit less of. You can still enjoy them, but you want to eat more fatty fish, salmon, so fantastic for your brain. Sardines, trout, mackerel, nuts and nuts butters, olive and vegetable oils, flaxseed, eggs, avocado, all healthy fat sources. So protein is very quick and easy to get through because it's very closely related to fat. Animal products with high saturated fat content are what we want to have a little bit less of. And we want to increase our animal products with lower saturated fat content or our vegetable-based proteins. So non-animal protein sources are fantastic too. Emphasize your mono and polyunsaturated fats. The way we do that is eating less of those high marbled meats and dairy and eat more of those plant-based protein sources. So beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains. A goal for my clients always is to get them comfortable with making meals that are balanced, that don't contain an animal protein, just because it gives you more versatility in your diet and it will naturally lower the saturated fat content. Fish and shellfish, much lower in fat than most other animal products. And then our lean meats are things like chicken, turkey, pork tenderloin, a great, inexpensive, easy protein to make, comes out looking kind of fancy, much cheaper than beef and very versatile to cook with. And then tofu, soy-based proteins, completely safe. You don't need to worry about soy levels, not a problem there. So I'd be remiss as a dietitian if I didn't talk about fruits and vegetables, but luckily I can tack them on here at the end because they're simple. The key to getting the most out of your fruits and vegetables is adding color to your plate. The versatility of fruits and veggies is really based on their micronutrient content. So what vitamins and minerals do they provide outside of the fiber they're putting into our diet? That's their prime role. So when you read about the benefits of resveratrol or anthocyanins or antioxidants, those typically are put in supplements, but they actually are much more effective, if not completely more effective, by being consumed in your diet. And each of the fruits and vegetables that you consume have different levels and different types of micronutrients based on their color. This is why we say eat the rainbow. So make sure you get your lycopene from your red tomatoes, your vitamin C from your yellow lemons, your resveratrol from your red grapes. But the variety is the key here. So yes, broccoli is great. I don't want you to just eat broccoli every day. I'd rather see you have broccoli one day, then red peppers, then yellow squash. Eating these foods in their natural height of season is also going to raise the micronutrient levels as well. There's some things we've gotten very good at having available year-round. Doesn't mean they're great year-round, right? I'm always shocked to see the people spending $7.99 at the grocery store on the kind of orange-looking strawberries. I'm like, grab the Cara oranges. They're fantastic this time of year, and they're going to be more nutrient-dense. So a final thought, Morgan Spurlock was one of the first kind of really great viral makers of film about food and nutrition. And this quote from him is, "There's no magic bullet. You've got to eat healthy and live healthy to be healthy and look healthy." End of story. Now, I think that is slightly overly simplified because the word healthy has so much meaning behind it. But I think what I take away from this is, don't be tempted by those fad diets. Don't be thinking this is the one. This is if I just do keto, if I just do fasting. So much of today, hopefully, will resonate with you that it's really about food and about choices and about choosing things that make you happy, that you enjoy, that you love, but also that serve your body and will give you the energy and the longevity that you're looking for. So we're right at 1:30. I told you there was going to be a lot today, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I want to open it up for some questions. So I'll be watching the chat box right now. If you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead and put it into the chat. If you need to jump, I want to thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to be with this group. And I hope to see you at our future events. You're welcome. I'm so glad. How can I get more calcium in my diet? Great question. So I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So calcium, I think people feel concerned that they can only get calcium through dairy. Calcium is definitely dairy is definitely a prime calcium source, but you can get calcium also in leafy green vegetables. You can get calcium in tofu. Those are also great calcium sources. Also, sometimes foods are fortified with calcium. So something like orange juice, right, is going to have calcium added to it. Calcium really important for maintaining your bone health, even as we're aging. We really want to continue to protect our bone health, but making sure also that you have vitamin D present, because vitamin D is what helps you absorb calcium. Vitamin D you can find in fatty fish, in eggs and mushrooms. So they're what we call partner nutrients. So you need the vitamin D there for the calcium to be absorbed, but you don't have to rely on dairy for calcium. Green leafy vegetables, like I said, tofu, those are both, and fortified foods are both great sources. I've been into corn. It's a microprotein. Yeah, I know what it is. It's plant-based protein, but is it too processed? That's a great question. Plant-based doesn't inherently mean healthy. I get this question a lot about the Beyond Burgers too. So corn is it's QUORN, in case anyone doesn't know. And it is a mushroom, basically, plant-based protein. It has a lot of ingredients in it. I don't get fearful of that if your grandmother can't pronounce it. A lot of grandmothers couldn't pronounce, tocopherols. That doesn't mean that you can't eat them because they're just vitamin E, right? So some foods may seem complicated to pronounce. It doesn't mean they aren't good for you. So I would say that corn is great. I wouldn't have it be your sole protein source, right? I think the variety is important too. So I would also incorporate beans and lentils. Once in a while, maybe the Beyond Burger, they do tend to be higher in saturated fat than typical plant-based proteins. You want to be careful about that. But nuts, butters, lentils, seeds, those are all great protein sources as well. So realizing you can get protein from a lot of different places, and just like people become overly reliant on chicken, just put chicken in everything, right? You're not going to get the same quality nutrient profile when you focus on only one thing. So I think corn is fine. This wouldn't have it be your only protein source. Is it important to take omega-3 supplements, and can speak more about other supplements such as vitamin D and magnesium? I'm not sure if I should be taking supplements or not. Okay, that's a great question. So I will tell you that there's a lot less data on supplements than people think. And the supplement industry is completely unregulated. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West. Supplements are regulated as food, not drug, even though we take them as drugs, which means that a few things. One, supplement companies don't have to prove that their product's safe. They don't have to prove that it contains what they claim it contains. They don't have to prove that it's effective. So if you are going to take a supplement, I always recommend a single nutrient supplement. So rather than a combination, and find something that either comes from a health professional like myself versus just what you buy off the shelf, or is verified by USP, which is a verification system that the supplement companies can go to say, hey, test my drug or my supplement and see that it contains what it claims to contain. They still don't have to prove efficacy. So it really depends on what you're taking a supplement for. I always recommend a blood panel once a year just to see where your micronutrient levels are. So test and see if you're deficient in things that are common like iron or vitamin D. If you are, first try to get them more in your diet. Foods that contain these nutrients tend to be better absorbed in our system than taking them in supplement form. So research supports that people that have diets high in vitamin D have less risk of fracture and fall as they age when it comes to bone health. However, when we supplement people with vitamin D, we don't see the same results. So diet first always. And then a supplement can't necessarily hurt, but I wouldn't really rely on it being the end all be all compared to a healthy diet. Magnesium supplement you asked about is typically used to help people with with promoting sleep, or for general calm and anxiety. I think there's some research to support it, but there's not a proven cause and effect. And then you asked about omega-3 fatty acids. So interestingly, omega-3 fatty acids are one of the only supplements that have a good research-backed support in the science for why they're beneficial. They can help with brain health. They can help with brain fog, healthy aging. So again, I prefer you get omega-3s through your diet because they're going to be more bioavailable. But that is one where I think it would be worth, potentially taking a supplement. What brands of supplements do I recommend? So I recommend really getting your supplements through a health professional because we have access to high quality wholesale supplements. I also don't really support health professionals taking money from that. So for example, I recommend supplements for some of my clients. I pass on the discount to them rather than me getting a kickback for it because I just think that's how the industry should work. My go-to brand is called Claire Labs. So if you can find it in regular retail places, I like them. That I would say like across the board, I feel comfortable with all of their supplements. There are other singular supplements, like I have a prenatal that I really like. That's a different brand, but across the board for a brand, that's what I would recommend. I heard Life Extension and Nordic Naturals are good. Can you comment on these? Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Life Extension. Nordic Naturals, yes, I've heard good things as well. I'd have to look into them a little bit more deeply. I take my supplement recommendations very seriously because they're expensive and they are kind of the I don't know how else to say it. They are kind of the space that we've just allowed to run free. And it makes me a little bit uncomfortable when people just go spend a ton of money on supplements and don't know if they work. So again, I'm familiar with Nordic Naturals, heard very good things. I don't know as much about Life Extension. There are a couple other brands that I really like besides Claire Labs, like I said, for certain individual supplements. But again, I would definitely go through a health professional versus just buying things off the shelf. Do not order them on Amazon. Okay, any other questions? I know we've gone over by about 5 minutes. So if anybody else wants to put something in to the chat, please feel free to do that. If not, you're welcome. If not, thanks so much for joining today. I hope you guys found it helpful and hopefully I will see you at the next session.